Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Sorry I can't join you in person. I had something come up for work, but just wanted to share my semester project with you. I guess let's get started. So my paper was revising a neighborhood analysis I performed for Belknap Lookout back in PA643 Economic Development. And I really thought this was an interesting case study for me since I live in the area and I'm interested in how places change over time, as well as the factors really influencing those changes. So being close to downtown, the neighborhood's really experiencing a lot of growth and seeing a lot of development. This paper seeks to understand it better and view the neighborhood through the context of complete neighborhoods. So moving on here. Slide. All right, so the next slide is kind of the neighborhood background. And this is, so the location of it is, it's just north of downtown Grand Rapids on the northeast side of town. So it's really south of Leonard, west of College Avenue, and it kind of runs along the Grand River north of I-96 or I-196 rather. And it's right up next to the Medical Mile Hospital District, which runs along Michigan Street. And it's also the largest employment center in West Michigan. Over 50,000 people work in the area. And the current population is around 4,300 people with the last census that came out in 2020. So I thought this was really neat. This is a picture of Michigan Street looking east from, I think it's like the 1920s, and as well as its current, how it looks today. And here is just a shameless Google Maps screen grab that I edited a little bit, just showing the kind of proximity of the neighborhood, how close it is to the Medical Mile to the south and the Monroe North Business District to the west. And so those are highlighted in red, as well as some new developments within the neighborhood itself, namely the GVSU new medical center campus going in. I think it's the Finkelstein Hall, as well as some large scale apartment and condo developments throughout the neighborhood. So this paper really wanted to kind of highlight the idea of complete neighborhoods. It's really a hot topic in land use planning policy, as a lot of people and organizations are seeking to create walkable areas where you can access amenities without driving using a car. So an analogy people use commonly is, if you need a gallon of milk, do you have to drive 15 minutes to Meijer or Walmart or another big box store, or can you walk a few blocks and pick it up at a corner market? So complete neighborhoods are really a mixed use environment with housing, retail, offices, manufacturing, parks, schools, you name it. And because these places are walkable and they're kind of oriented for public transit, people don't need to travel by cars frequently. So this in turn kind of limits the number of parking lots and spaces that need to be dedicated to parking cars. And numerous organizations really support this concept, namely the AARP, American Association of Retired Persons, which is huge, and the American Heart Association. And the city of Grand Rapids, in the past few years, they seek to create these types of neighborhoods, mainly on emphasis on climate change, reducing carbon emissions, as well as increasing housing affordability. A lot of people are moving to West Michigan, and there's a definite shortage in housing. So they look at it through that lens oftentimes. And people think complete neighborhoods are a new concept for building places, but really it's looking back, it's how we built cities for thousands of years, before cars existed. And really, so complete neighborhoods is just kind of a marketing or a branding scheme, I guess. And just kind of looking at how we built places in the past. So moving forward, in the context of Belknap Lookout, what are some of the limitations that is kind of hindering it from becoming complete, we'll call it. And one of these is the land use regulations that limit construction in the area. Although Grand Rapids and Kent County have increasing housing costs and shortages in housing supply, the city zoning ordinance permits fewer residential units than it did over 50 years ago. On the right side here is the zoning map from 1969, and then the most current one from 2018. And you can see that what used to be zoned for higher density residential is now zoned for lower density residential, and that's certainly a barrier for constructing housing units. So because of this, a lot of the development is usually a large developer will come in and buy up an entire city block, work with the city to have it rezoned as a planned special redevelopment district. Then they'll usually raise that block, construct a large building on it, and neighbors usually hate this. And because you can't incrementally develop like a single family house, turn it into a duplex, and then make it into like a 4-unit building. Since incremental development is prohibited through the current zoning regulations, this is the only way to develop the neighborhood is through large scale, large block developments from large developers, and that leads to distrust among existing residents. So that's an issue. And then looking at how the public is engaged throughout the process can be an issue. So all the development goes through the Neighbors of Belknap Lookout Board and Development Committee, and a lot of the organizations, as we know, public organizations really struggle with getting public input from folks. And really only people who oppose things are frequently at the meetings. So you're missing out on a large subset of the population that may be in favor of something. This process oftentimes only represents a few people who can take off, a night meeting or, attend an afternoon meeting. So that raises issues of, representation, who can attend these meetings, whose voice is heard. As well as, so limiting the number of housing units in the neighborhood also limits the retail opportunities. That's just because retail relies on the notion of rooftops or population density. And more people living in the area, the larger the customer base is. And I included the picture of I-196 and these parking ramps because, with the medical mile being such a large employment center, over 50,000 people, work there every day. I imagine many of them would like to walk to work, but are unable to do so. And so reduced housing also leads to needing to increase the amount of parking spaces as people travel in from outside of town. And as you can see, we just built the city, and I think GVSU and Spectrum Health built a new ramp that houses, I want to say, over 1,000 parking spaces, which is really an inefficient way to use land, especially in an urban area. I just wanted to touch on that as well. So with all of these considerations, my paper reflected on really some suggestions for the future, one of which is, I guess the main suggestion really is reducing barriers to housing construction, which involves including making multi-unit buildings legal on all lots within the neighborhood. Many cities have done this recently, such as Minneapolis. The state of Portland is moving in this direction. California, which faces many different issues in the housing realm, they're moving towards this. A lot of places are. And as Grand Rapids continues to see new residents, this is a way to alleviate the housing affordability issue within the city and really allowing more housing in our neighborhoods. So I include an image of, at the top right, Sears and Roebuck catalog from, I think, the 1920s. you probably recognize many of these buildings. A lot of them are dotted throughout Grand Rapids, and just allowing this type of development again can really alleviate the housing issues within the city. So that kind of segues into my second point of increasing business opportunities as well. As neighborhoods have more population, more local businesses are able to open, and the city can really partner with neighbors of Belknap Lookout and work with landlords and developers on really finding tenants for vacant commercial spaces even, and trying to fill those spaces. But regardless, having more residents in an area can increase the customer base, which helps businesses a lot. And the third point is purposeful and continual community input. So current process takes a one-time meeting with the Noble Development Committee, then a community meeting, and then the Neighbors of Belknap Lookout Board either approves or doesn't approve of it. Then it goes to the City Planning Commission, which includes a public hearing. And those public planning commission meetings, I believe, currently happen on a Tuesday afternoon at like noon. And many people work a 9 to 5, or even if it's a night meeting, a lot of people work in the evenings, and it's hard for them to get off of work and hard for their voice to be heard. So again, an issue of representation and who can attend meetings. And I suggest that Neighbors of Belknap Lookout is more diligent in taking surveys and engaging the community in local events and things of that nature. So really, in a nutshell, that's kind of my semester paper. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to discuss it further. I've really enjoyed the semester, and everyone graduating, I want to wish you the best. Congratulations again on graduating. And I'm sure our paths will cross again in the future. You're here in the Grand Rapids region. So thanks everyone, and enjoy your Christmas and holiday break.